Holy crap. What's going on, guys? Welcome to another episode of Vets, Cars, and Jesus. I am Chris Gromas, head of David Sword Ministries, and I'm super excited for today's episode. So I'm on my way up to go hang out with Ken Mahoy, a U.S. Air Force veteran. Really awesome guy, just to hear about his story, his faith, his service, and his family. Really looking forward to this interview. But today we are cruising in a 2020 Mustang GT. That's right, this has the Coyote motor 5.0. It's putting out 460 horsepower with 420 pounds of torque stock. That's right, it basically does 0 to 60 in 4.2 seconds, and I can attest that is absolutely correct. And it's running about a stock quarter mile about 12.2 seconds. This car is fast, and it's fun, and it likes crowds, apparently. That's what I'm being told. This car is awesome, it's fun. The only downside I really see about this car is it likes to kick the rear end really fast. Really fast. I mean, just right out from behind you, you're going sideways down the road. Not gonna lie, it's a little bit of fun, as long as there's no cars around you. But guys, get ready, here we go. A new episode of Vets, Cars, and Jesus. Hey guys, today we're here with Ken Mahoy, and in the 5.0 Mustang Coyote GT, scary car, crowd control.
Sounds good.
Oh yeah. Thank you so much, Ken, for hanging out and talking.
Absolutely.
So why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Ken Mahoy. I'm retired Air Force. I was in 23 years. Did part of it active duty, part of it in the Air National Guard as well when I finally ended up. I multiple tours downrange to Iraq and Afghanistan. Retired about 10 years ago to quit going overseas. Got picked up by a contractor right away, and the first thing they did was send me right back to Afghanistan again as a contractor, so that didn't work out very well. But I love what I do, and I'm still heavily involved in the military community post-retirement, and so it's the best of both worlds.
Oh yeah. What years were you in?
You're gonna date me now. I joined in 12 days out of high school on the 13th of June, 1986.
Okay.
And I got out the end of September 30th of 2009.
That's a pretty big span. That's a good span. A lot of stuff going on in those years.
Yeah. Well, I remember when people talk about the Gulf War, I'm like, which one?
Yeah.
I was in both.
I remember that. So I remember not knowing what war was. I think Gulf War was 92?
91.
91.
Yeah.
And I remember I was 10 years old at that time. And
kicked off January 16th. Actually, Saddam Hussein invaded Kuwait on August 3rd, 1990, because I remember pretty well. I was at the Pentagon at the time working for DIA, and the flash messages on the mainframe were coming in that there was an invasion that took place. And this is back before the days of 24-hour news coverage. CNN was still pretty new at that point.
Yeah, I remember watching with Larry King and all that too.
Yeah. And back then, that kind of stuff would happen behind the scenes, and it was at least 24 hours before it ever hit the news cycle. So it was always fun for me working there. I would go home and get the popcorn and watch the news and say, well, okay, what do they know about today, or what did they get right, or sometimes it was half wrong, half right. Sometimes it was misinformation too. It just depended. But yeah, good times.
Man, that's crazy. So during that time, so when did you become a Christian? That's probably a good question to start with there.
When I was 8 years old, believe it or not.
Nice.
Yeah, I grew up in church just down the road from here at a little farm community at New Brunswick Church of Christ. And we had a revival going on, and they were a lot more prevalent back then. Revivals were a thing. You don't really hear too much about those anymore, but during that revival, I remember the guy who was speaking just really convicted me, and I thought, what's going to happen if I were to die tomorrow? I'm only 8 years old, but I'm still thinking, well, I know enough about God to know that if I don't make that decision now, things could, not go so well for me. So
that's a pretty cool understanding at 8.
Yeah. Well, the funny thing is, there was a moment there that freaked me out. Call it God's way of getting His message to you, or just call it coincidence. I'll let you decide. But the church I was at had a rheostat that brought the lights down, very slowly. And so at the very end of that revival service, he said, "Let's bow for prayer." And as I bowed my head and started to close my eyes, somebody brought those lights down and darkened the entire place at the exact same time. And I had that really quick, panicky moment for a moment, and I thought, what if I'm dying? I'm not going to heaven, if I if I don't commit my life to Christ right now. And I know it sounds funny to think about now, but in that moment I thought, you know what, I need to make that decision right now. So I went forward and said I want to be baptized, and that began. I was the oldest grandchild, and that began the tradition of my grandfather baptizing every one of his 10 grandchildren. I was the first one of that. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, a few weeks later, he baptized me, and that was how my journey started.
That must have been super special for him. Like, I got the opportunity to baptize like all 3 of my kids, and I know feeling like that is such a unique, amazing, awesome feeling to be able to be there. So I bet your grandpa was just like overjoyed about that.
Yeah. Yep, and that was the beginning of it. He baptized most of his great-grandchildren as well.
Oh, man.
So, yeah, he was the spiritual patriarch of our family, and the wisest man I ever knew. In fact, it was my dad and my family was very, very devout as well, but my grandfather was the one. I call him Papa. Papa was the one I always went to for advice when I had doubts or questions and things about things that I'd seen or experienced, and I thought, well, he's the one I'll know. I'll ask him.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
That's the one thing I miss. Like, my grandpa, both of them died before. One was when I was 2. One was in 1945.
Oh wow.
So he actually died at the Battle of the Bulge, where he was a Nazi POW.
Oh
so
wow.
It's kind of a crazy time, but one thing I missed was like that relationship. So it's awesome to be having that patriarch.
Yeah.
So going into your service, was there ever a time when you felt like God was just with you, and there was just like, or a moment where you just really felt like, hey, this is something serious, I need you, God, or anything like that? Or the moment where you're just like, I see God's at work?
Wow, do you want the whole list or just the top 20?
Nice.
Several times. I can narrow it down to probably 3 or 4 times specifically that I could really feel God present, and also working in the lives of the people that were around me as well, because you've probably heard the phrase, there are no atheists in a foxhole.
Oh, big time, yeah.
And that was never more prevalent than in 2003 when we were on our way north into Baghdad in the early days of the war, like during what we now call OIF-1, Operation Iraqi Freedom Part 1, basically during the February-March time frame when we first went into Baghdad, and I was part of that crew. They were the first ones there. The guys I was with, they, along with our crew and ammo and everything we brought with us, people don't realize that we also had like 3,500 body bags that we were carrying with us as well, because we were expecting casualties up to that rate. And people also forget that chemical warfare was a real thing.
Yeah, I remember.
We were walking around with our gas masks on, and what we feared more than getting shot, actually we didn't really fear getting shot so much, what we feared more was getting attacked chemically. because if you've been through any kind of chemical warfare training, you know that death by chemical warfare is just excruciatingly bad. So bad I don't even want to describe it here, because if there's kids listening to this, they don't want to hear this part of it. It wouldn't even be PG. And so that was a real thing. So it brought a lot of people who weren't normally followers of Christ to me and a few other guys that, you know, we had kind of a peace about us. It's kind of hard to explain. It's the part of war that I really never can adequately convey, because when you wake up every day and you honestly realize that today is probably likely going to be my last, and you're okay with that, that gets the attention of a lot of other people around you that don't have that peace about them, that knowledge that, you know, Christ is there, and you know where you're going if something does happen that day. You know, it's just a hard thing to explain. Well, I had a guy that a young E3 that worked for me at the time. He was from Puerto Rico, and he just he wasn't brought up in any kind of faith at all, and he saw that I was in my Bible a lot. The one weird thing about war is that there's a lot of downtime between all the skirmishes and the gun battles and the convoys and things that you see in the movies. About 95% of that time was spent just laying around somewhere waiting for that to happen. So
most movies, you think it's like literally go 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 go.
Sometimes it is, but most times it's movements from one place to the other, or you're waiting for a ring route, you know, for a Chinook to pick you up and take you there, and you're just laying on your backpack for 6 hours until the guy picks you up. So that's the part of war they don't show in the movies, because it's just not quite as exciting. But during those times, I spent a lot of time in my Bible, and this one young airman of mine took notice of it, asked a lot of questions, and to make a really long story short, by the time our time together was done there, we were together for several months, I ended up giving him my Bible, because he didn't even own a Bible, and I gave that to him to take back to Puerto Rico, and he wrote me several months later. He found me. This is before the days of Facebook, obviously, and on social media. He had traced down my unit and made a point to try to find me, to tell me that he'd accepted the Lord Jesus as his Savior, and that he wanted to thank me for that time. That's just one story of several, to be honest, but there are times that you just wonder how you even come out of some of the skirmishes alive as well, and that's when you just know that God was right there and protecting you as well. And his hedge of protection was over you and your squadron.
Man, I love Ken's story, and I can't wait for you guys to check out part 2 next week when we drop it. But until then, I'd like to invite you guys to go to www.dsministries.org. There you're going to find a way to help us help veterans in need with full cars. Yeah, That's Cars and Jesus isn't just about doing awesome stories about awesome people. We want to go ahead and give back. And the way we're doing that is by giving away cars. So everybody that helps us and donates, they're going to have their name written onto the car. Probably under the trunklet or under the hood or somewhere, that every time that veteran sees it, they know that we are thankful for their service and their dedication to our country, and we want to give back. So guys, go there. It's www.thesministries.org. You can also get some cool merch. That's right, we have merch now. Go check it out. Sweatshirts aren't there yet, but you guys can get an awesome shirt designed by Imperial Beach Dad. So guys, go check that out. Next Friday, we're dropping part 2 of Ken's story. You guys aren't going to want to miss it. Until then, God bless you.